In 2026, static websites, those are dead. But animated websites are converting 3 times better. Now that might sound exaggerated, I know, but when you look at how people interact with websites today, well, it does make sense. Static pages tend to get ignored while motion just naturally draws attention and guides users through content. A well-designed animated landing page can explain what a product does in just a few seconds without having to really rely on long blocks of text. It creates a clear visual flow, it builds trust faster, and it helps visitors understand exactly where to focus. And this matters more than ever because how your website looks directly affects how people trust your brand. And when a website responds smoothly to movement and feels interactive, people are just more likely to hang around and stay, explore, and ultimately take action. And that difference alone can turn a simple page into something that actually converts. So in this tutorial, we're going to build a complete animated website from scratch in under 30 minutes. No coding, no complicated setup, so that by the end, you will have a fully interactive 3D website. Your page will include smooth entrance animations where text and buttons glide into view, a real-time 3D object integrated using Spline, and scroll-based effects like Parallax that add depth as users move down the page. And the AI tool that we will be using to build all of this in the animated website is Wix. It's currently one of the most powerful animated website builders out there right now. And I've added a special link in the description down below so that you can go ahead and check them out too. So as a special bonus for everyone watching this Wix tutorial, thank you very much, I'm also giving you free access to my complete Base 44 Masterclass. So Base 44 is an advanced AI app and SaaS builder that normally costs $299 to join for my Masterclass. But for viewers of this video, it's completely free. And this means you'll not only learn how to master Wix AI for websites, but you'll also get the skills to build profitable apps and SaaS platforms with Base 44, all without any coding required. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Before we start building anything, let's go ahead and get your setup ready. And the tool we'll be using, again, is Wix Studio. And it is specifically designed for creating modern, professional websites, all without needing to code. Under the hood, it uses a CSS grid-based system, which basically means that your layout automatically adjusts across different screen sizes. So that's desktop, tablet, and of course mobile, without you having to manually fix everything. And that's what makes it especially powerful for animation-heavy designs, because now you can just focus on how things look and move instead of having to worry about technical structure. One of the biggest advantages of Wix Studio is how beginner-friendly it actually is. Even though it is built for professional designers, the visual editor itself is very intuitive. You're not writing CSS or setting up complex logic. Rather, you're just kind of dragging elements, placing them wherever you want, and then applying animations visually. And everything happening in the background, like hosting, responsiveness, and data handling, all of that is already taken care of. So instead of getting stuck trying to figure out more code, you can just spend your time designing and actually building something that looks high-end. So to go ahead and get started, we're going to need to create an account, of course. Open up your browser and go to wix.com/studio. And once the page loads, just click the Start Creating button here. From here, we'll choose the option to log in with Google. And this is the fastest way to get in since it does skip all the usual sign up, blah, blah, blah. And within seconds, you'll land directly on your dashboard where all of your projects will live. Now, once you're inside, click Create New Site. And at this point, Wix will ask you to choose between using a template or starting from a blank canvas. Now, templates are useful if you do want something quick and structured. They come with pre-built layouts that guide you, which is great if you just want to launch something fast. But for this project, we're going to go with a blank canvas. And that's because we'll be working with custom layouts here, overlapping elements, and of course 3D animations, and sometimes templates can just sometimes get in their own way with their built-in structure. So starting from scratch gives us full control over everything. And now, before we move forward, you also need to get familiar with the interface, because this is where you will spend most of your time. On the left side here, you're going to see the Add Elements panel marked with a plus icon. And this is where you bring in everything: text, images, buttons, containers, basically all of the building blocks of your site. And right below that is the Layers panel, which is extremely important when you start working with overlapping elements, especially in 3D. And this lets you control what sits on top of what, kind of like managing layers in design tools. So here on the right side, you'll find the Inspector panel, and this is where you can control sizing, positioning, some alignment, and of course, most importantly, animations. There's a tab here marked with a lightning bolt icon. That's where all of your animation settings live. And this is where you will also define how elements enter and move and respond to user interaction. And if this is your first time using a tool like this, then it might feel like a lot, I know, at first, but that's completely normal. Most people open up a design tool, they click around for a few minutes, and then they feel a little slightly lost before things start to click. But once you do place a few elements here and then you start seeing how everything connects, then it will be much more intuitive for you. Key is just getting familiar with where things are, because after that, then the actual building process just becomes a lot smoother. Planning your animated website properly does make a big difference in how everything turns out in the end. It might be tempting to just go ahead and jump straight into building, but without a clear plan, then the page can easily just end up looking all cluttered or even confusing. Animation isn't just there to make things look all cool. Nope. Rather, it should just help guide the user's attention and then lead them smoothly from the top of the page down to your main call to action. So we'll start by deciding what your website is actually for. It could be for a business, a portfolio, or maybe your own personal brand. So that decision affects how your design looks and how your animations behave. And for this project, we're building a modern tech product page. And this kind of site works really well with animation, especially 3D elements, because it does help show innovation right away. Instead of having to explain everything with a bunch of text, the design itself already gives that kind of impression. So for inspiration, you don't have to come up with everything on your own here. A lot of good designs are based on ideas that, well, already exist. You can go to the Spline community at spline.design/community and then explore all kinds of different 3D projects made by other creators. So after logging in, you'll be able to browse and even remix projects. Look for things like, say, smooth transitions, interactive elements, and creative layouts. These can give you ideas that you can apply to your own site. It also helps to prepare your content early so that you don't keep having to stop while building. In Wix Studio, we'll just open up the media panel here on the left side, and then we'll click Upload Media and then just bring in everything that we're going to need: our logo, our background images, icons, and other visuals. Having everything already ready makes the process just much smoother. So now think about how your animations will work across the page. So imagine how someone will go through your website from top to bottom, and at the very top, your hero section here should grab attention right away. So this is where entrance animations work best. So text and buttons can appear smoothly as soon as the page loads. And as the user scrolls down, you can just use scroll animations to then reveal the next sections little by little. And this keeps things engaging and prevents too much information from showing all at once. Now, a lot of websites try to show everything immediately right away, which can make it harder to focus. When content appears step by step, it is easier to follow and understand. So each animation here helps direct attention to the right place, making the whole page just feel and look more organized and easier to go through. Building the foundation of your website is where everything starts to come together. So this step is all about setting up the structure properly so that everything that you add later on, especially animations and 3D elements, all of those will work smoothly. In Wix Studio, using containers instead of rigid sections gives us a lot more flexibility here. We can overlap elements and control positioning more precisely and make sure that everything scales properly across different screen sizes without really having to break our layout. So to begin, let's go to the top right corner here and click Create New Site. Then choose to start from a blank canvas. After a few seconds, the Wix editor will now load, and on the left side here, click the layers panel so that you can see how everything is structured. So by default, you'll see a basic layout that includes a page, a header, and a footer. It's helpful to understand here what these parts are for. So the header is usually sitting at the top and contains navigation like your logo and your menu. Sections are the main parts of your page where your content lives, stacked one after another. And then the footer sits here at the bottom and usually contains extra links or contact information and social media. So for this project, we want a clean and fully custom layout. So we're going to remove the default header and the footer to avoid any restrictions. And in the layers panel, right-click the footer and delete it. Do the same thing now for the header. And now you're left with a clean starting point. Click the quick add button here on the top left, choose container, and then drag it into the page. Rename this container to banner, then add another container and rename it to header. So these two will act as your main building blocks. So next you'll set things up so that your layout adjusts properly on any screen. Select the banner container, then click the stretch icon so it fills the full width of the screen. And in the layers panel here, select the section, then go to the inspector panel on the right. Under size, turn on advanced settings and set the height to viewport height, then enter 101 VH. This makes sure that your banner fits the entire screen height, no matter what device is being used. So now select the header container, and in the inspector panel again, turn on advanced settings and then set the width to 100% and align it to the top center. Change the height to 8 VH so it stays slim and proportional, then lower the background opacity to 0% so it becomes fully transparent. And this allows it to sit on top of the banner without having to block anything underneath. And these small adjustments also make a huge difference because they ensure that your hero section always sits perfectly on the screen, whether someone is using a large monitor or even a smaller laptop. Everything just stays consistent and clean. So finally, set up your color foundation. Select the banner container, go to the inspector panel here again, and choose a dark background color, like say charcoal or deep green. Dark backgrounds work really well for animated and 3D designs because they create strong contrast. So bright text and moving elements stand out more clearly, and your 3D visuals blend in much better with the overall look. So at this point, your structure is ready, and it may look simple, but this setup is what allows everything else, animations, 3D elements, and interactions, to work smoothly without running into layout issues later on. So the header is one of the most important parts of your website because it controls how users navigate. At the same time, it shouldn't take attention away from your main visuals, especially since we're working with a 3D animated banner. The goal here is to create a clean, transparent header that sits on top of your design without getting in the way. So we'll start by selecting your header layer, then open the media panel and add the assets that you uploaded earlier, such as your logo, menu icon, and social media icons. Place them inside of the header container and then resize them so everything fits nicely within the space. And once your elements are on the canvas, then select the logo and use the inspector panel again to align it to the left. And then select your menu and then align that to the right. So this keeps your layout pretty well balanced and easy to follow. And for spacing, just go ahead and select the entire header layer and add around 40 pixels or px of padding in the layout settings. This gives your elements room to breathe and prevents everything from looking like it's all cramped up together. And if you're using social media icons, select them, distribute them evenly, then group them using stack. After that, align the group horizontally so everything sits neatly all in place. So now let's make the header feel a bit more polished by adding animations. So let's go ahead and select your logo, go to the Animations and Effects tab in the Inspector panel, and then under Entrance, choose Fade In. Then click Adjust Animation and set the duration to around 1.2 seconds. This gives it a smooth and very controlled appearance instead of just showing up instantly. So apply the same animation to your menu and social icons so that everything else appears consistently. You can also click the preview button here at the top to see how it would look when the page loads. So next is mobile optimization, which is easy to overlook sometimes, but is also really important. On smaller screens, elements can sometimes resize in a way that just makes them way too small to interact with. To fix this, select each media element in the Layers panel. Go to the Inspector panel and change the responsive behavior from Scale Proportionally to Fixed. After that, switch between desktop, tablet, and mobile views using the icons at the top of the editor. And check that everything still looks clean and that icons remain large enough to go ahead and tap on easily. And this setup just makes sure that your header stays usable across all devices instead of shrinking into tiny, hard-to-click elements. So right now, your header should look clean, it's balanced and smooth when it does actually load. It stays visible for navigation, but it doesn't take attention away from the main animated section underneath. Adding 3D elements is what really transforms your website from something flat into something interactive and immersive. Instead of just showing images or text, you're giving users something that they can move around and explore. And this kind of interaction immediately just makes a site stand out and keeps people engaged longer. To do this, we'll use Spline, which is a browser-based 3D tool built specifically for web use. Open up a new tab and go to spline.design/community. And if you don't have your own 3D model yet, you can just go ahead and browse through the community projects. Try searching for something like technology or computer, then pick a clean, high-quality interactive design. Once you find one that you like, click Remix, and then this creates a copy in your own workspace, so now that you can use it and adjust it if needed. Now, before bringing it into your site, you will want to set up how users interact with it. So at the top of Spline, go to the Export menu, then open Play Settings. Set the background color to hide so it becomes transparent. And this is important here because it allows your 3D object to sit naturally on top of your website background. Then enable interaction options like orbit on hover or pan. And this lets the object respond to the user's cursor, which adds that interactive effect. So after that, click Update Public URL to apply your changes. And now you're ready to bring it into Wix Studio. In Spline, go to the Public URL tab and copy the embed code. Head back to your Wix editor, click the Quick Add button, search for iframe and place it into your canvas. And once it's added, click Edit Code above the iframe and then paste your Spline URL, then click Update. And now you should immediately see your 3D scene appear. Select the iframe and stretch it so that it fills your entire banner container. Then open the Layers panel and adjust its position. And be sure to make sure that the iframe sits above your background but below your text and buttons. So this kind of layering is important because it allows the 3D element to act as a sort of moving background while still keeping your main content visible and clickable. Click Preview to test everything. Move your cursor around and check that the 3D object responds properly and doesn't block any buttons or text. And one thing to keep in mind here is performance. Not all 3D scenes are optimized for the web. And when choosing a design from Spline, make sure to kind of go for something simple and clean instead of heavy models with too many effects. And this helps your website load faster and run more smoothly across different devices, especially on laptops and phones. The Hero section is where people decide in just a few seconds whether they're going to stay on your site or just bounce out and leave. And it's not just about looking good, it's about immediately showing what your site is about and getting attention and guiding attention to the most important action. A strong hero section combines visuals and motion and clear messaging so that users instantly know where to look and what to do next. So start by adding a background animation. Click Add, go to Media, and you can either upload your own assets or just use Wix's built-in options like Video Box or Particles. And for this project, a moving gradient works really well. In the search bar, type gradient, then choose Mesh Gradients. Add one to your site, pick a free option, and then stretch it so it fills the entire banner container. Then check your Layers panel and then make sure that it's actually placed here at the very bottom. This becomes the base layer that everything else sits on. So next, add your main text, go to Quick Add, and then insert a title element, then type your site name, something like Digital Hub, Adjust the size and color so that it stands out against the background, and then slightly lower the opacity to blend it more naturally into the scene. So place this text under the iframe layer so your 3D element still appears on top. Then go to the Animations and Effects tab, add an entrance animation, and then choose something like, say, typewriter, fade, or slide. Set a small delay of around another half second so that the text appears right after the background loads, making it one of the first things that people notice. After that, add your call to action button. Insert a button from the Quick Add menu, set the background color to white, and then change the text to black for more stronger contrast. In the inspector panel, increase the corner radius to around 50px to give it that, rounded modern look. And this button should be easy to see and clearly stand out from everything else on the screen. To organize everything better and also create a sense of depth, we can add a short paragraph under your title. Then hold Shift, select both the paragraph and the button, and then group them using Stack. And this keeps them all aligned and easier to manage. Apply an entrance animation as well to this group, but add a longer delay, about say 2 seconds for the button. And this creates a sequence where the title appears first, then followed by the supporting text, and then the button itself. And that order keeps and helps guide attention naturally from top to bottom. So when all those layers work together, then the moving background, the 3D element, the animated text, and the button, well, then you get a hero section that immediately stands out. And one that doesn't just show information, but really presents it in a way that's easy to follow, and it is visually engaging right from the start. So a good website doesn't just show content, it responds as you move through it. And this is where scroll animations make a big difference. So instead of everything just appearing all at once, elements just show up and move based on how far someone has scrolled. And this creates a more guided experience and keeps the page interesting from start to finish. So to go ahead and start building this out, we'll add new sections below your hero. Click Add Section and create at least 2 new sections. Then select each one and set the height to around 1000 pixels in the inspector panel. And this gives us enough vertical space for animations to actually play as the user scrolls. So now add an element into one of these sections, like an image or a shape. Select it, go to the Animations and Effects tab, and then under the scroll category, click plus Add. And this allows the animations to trigger based on scroll position. As you preview and scroll down, you'll notice the elements start to move or appear only when it enters the screen, which immediately makes the page just more dynamic instead of just static content stacked on top of each other. You can also make sections more interactive by adding a gallery. So click Add, search for Pro Gallery, and then place it into your canvas. Select the gallery, then go to the Animations and Effects tab, and then open up the Mouse Effects section. Add an effect like Skew 3D. So now when you hover over the gallery, it reacts to your cursor, giving it a more interactive and responsive look. So for text, instead of showing everything all at once again, it is better to reveal it gradually. Add a paragraph block into your section, then go to the Animations tab and choose a scroll animation like, say, Fade or Reveal. Adjust the animation area so that the text starts appearing when it enters the lower part of the screen and becomes fully visible closer to the center. This makes the content easier to read and keeps the user focused on one section at a time. So to add more depth, we can also use parallax effects. So we can go ahead and select a background element here, or maybe a decorative shape, apply a scroll animation and choose parallax or move. And this makes the background move at a different speed compared to the rest of the content, creating a sort of layered effect that adds more visual interest. So that by the time you've set this up, your page should now start to guide the viewer naturally. Each section should introduce itself at the right moment, interactions happen where expected, and scrolling becomes part of the experience instead of just a way to move down the page. So now basic animations are a good starting point, but what really makes a website look polished is how those animations are fine-tuned. So small adjustments in timing, in movement, and sequence can completely change how everything looks. Instead of relying on, default presets, just take a bit of time to really tweak these settings, and they help your animation just look more intentional and professional rather than random or distracting. And one of the most important things to adjust is easing. Easing controls how an animation speeds up or slows down, similar to how objects just move in real life. So select any element here that already has an animation, go to the Animations tab, and then click Adjust Animation. And from there, find the easing dropdown. Instead of leaving it on linear, which moves at a constant speed, switch to options like ease in or ease out. And these create smoother motion, either starting slowly and speeding up, or starting fast and then slowing down at the end. So this one change alone can really make your animations look just a lot more refined. Another useful technique is controlling how multiple elements appear together. Instead of, say, everything showing up again all at the same time, you can just stagger them so that they appear one after another. So for example, if you have 3 elements, select the first one and set a delay of 0.9 seconds, then the second to 0.6 seconds, and the third to 0.3 seconds. And this creates a sort of cascading effect where elements appear in sequence, making it easier to follow and really just more visually appealing. You can also add subtle movement while your page is loading. Static elements can make a page look like it's not doing anything, especially if heavier content like 3D models is still loading. So to fix this, add a small shape or icon, go to the Animations tab, and then choose a loop animation like spin or breathe. These continuous animations add a bit of motion in the background and also make the page just look active while everything else just loads. Small interactive details also go a long way. So select something like a button or a card, go to the interactions menu, and then choose a hover trigger. Then apply an animation like expand and adjust the scale to around 125%. This means when someone moves their cursor over it, the element responds immediately. And these small touches, again, just make your site more interactive and help highlight important actions like buttons. So when you combine all these techniques, adjusted easing, staggered timing, subtle loops, and hover interactions, you move from basic animation to something that really looks just a lot more intentional and well designed. However, here's the thing, a website might look perfect on your screen, but that does not guarantee it's going to work well everywhere else. A huge portion of users will be viewing your site on their phones, and animations behave very differently on smaller screens. So that's why testing and adjusting your design for mobile is not optional. It is a necessary step to make sure that everything still works the way it should. So now let's go ahead and check out how everything performs outside of your main view. Let's start by switching to a mobile view inside Wix Studio. And at the top center here of the editor, click the mobile device icon, then enable zoom out through the percentage icon so that you can see your entire layout as stacked blocks. So this gives you a clearer view of how everything is arranged vertically. So if you notice elements overlapping or just not lining up properly, you can just simply drag them into place or tap your keyboard arrow keys to adjust their position. And this helps keep your layout clean and easy to scroll through on smaller screens. Another important thing to fix is interactions. On desktop, hover effects work well because users just have a cursor. On mobile, however, there is no hover. Everything is based on touch. So if you have elements like buttons that rely on hover animations, they will not respond at all on a phone. So to fix this, stay in mobile view, select those elements, go to the interactions panel again, and now add a click trigger. So this way, users still get feedback when they tap and your design remains interactive. Next, check performance. 3D elements and animations can be heavier on mobile devices, especially older ones. So check the preview button and scroll through your site like a normal user would. Try scrolling quickly and then see how everything responds. If animations lag or even if they freeze, it usually means the 3D content is a bit too heavy. And in that case, just go back to Spline and then simplify your model, reduce details, remove extra effects, or turn off heavy shadows. This helps your site run more smoothly across different devices. Finally, test your site on different browsers and devices. Click the drop-down next to the preview button here and select Preview as Test Site. So this generates a link that you can open in browsers like, say, Chrome, Safari, or Firefox. Then check it on a mobile device by scanning the QR code or opening the link directly. So different browsers render animations slightly differently, so this step does help you catch any issues before going live. Again, keep in mind that taking the time to really test everything properly ensures your website works the same way for everyone else, no matter what device or browser that they're on. So a lot of people focus only on how their website looks, but then performance and visibility are just as important too. You can build something visually impressive, but if it loads slowly or it doesn't even appear in search results, well then most people will never even see it anyway, right? So that's why optimizing your site goes hand in hand with design. And one important thing to understand is how search engines read your site. Tools like Googlebot can easily understand text that's baked into videos or 3D scenes. So any important text like your main title or your keyword should always be placed in standard Wix text elements. Select your main title, go to the right side panel here, scroll down to the HTML tag option and then set it to H1. This tells search engines what your page is about. And keep these text elements layered on top of your 3D visuals instead of embedding them inside the animation so they stay readable and indexable. Speed is another big factor. Animated websites, especially with 3D, can become heavy if you're not careful. So just try to keep things simple when choosing your spline scenes. Avoid models with too many details, large textures, or excessive lighting effects. Cleaner and more optimized designs will load faster and run better across different devices. And if a scene is too complex, it can slow down your page and even affect your ranking in search results. Accessibility is also something that you don't want to overlook here. Make sure that none of your animations flash too quickly, since that can cause issues for some users. Also, check your color contrast. Your text should always be easy to read, even with moving backgrounds behind it. So these small adjustments make your site just more usable for everyone. And finally, it is important to track how your website is actually performing. So go to your Wix dashboard here, and then open up the Analytics tab. After your site has been live for a while, you can go ahead and check metrics like traffic by device and your top entry pages. Look at how long people stay on your site and how often they leave quickly, because this helps you figure out whether your animations are helping keep people engaged or if they're just adding extra noise. At this point, your website is built and ready to go. It just needs to go live. Publishing is what takes your project from your editor and then makes it accessible on the internet so other people can, well, yeah, actually see and interact with it. One of the first decisions here is your domain. If you're on a free plan, Wix will give you a subdomain, something like username.wixstudio.io/site. And this works fine for testing or early versions, but it does include Wix branding and does not look as professional. So if you want your site to look more credible, you can go ahead and connect a custom domain. Under the Publish menu here, click Connect a Custom Domain, then enter your own domain name. This removes the watermark and also gives your site a cleaner and more professional presence. Before publishing, it's also important to do one last final check. So go into preview mode and go through your site very carefully. Make sure your 3D animations load properly and run smoothly without any lag. Check both desktop and mobile views, of course, to confirm that everything scales correctly and nothing gets cut off or misplaced. And this last check helps catch those small issues before your site is finally going live. And when everything does look good to you, then you're ready to publish. So in the top right corner of the editor here, click the blue Publish button. A window will appear asking for your site name and domain. Enter those details, your details, then click Save and Continue. Wix will then upload your site and make it live. After a few moments, you'll then see a success message along with your live URL, which you can then copy and share. After publishing, there are still a couple of things to keep in mind here. If you connected a custom domain, for example, it may take around 10 to 15 minutes for the SSL certificate to fully activate, which is what gives your site the secure HTTPS connection. Also, your site isn't something you build once and then forget about it. Nope. You can always go back and then make updates. And if something does break, Wix has a site history feature that also lets you restore a previous version of your project. And going live here is a big step, but it's really just the beginning. From here, you can continue improving and testing and refining your site over time. Once you've built a few projects, the difference between something that looks decent and okay and something that really does stand out usually comes down to small decisions. And these are the details that most beginners tend to overlook, but they do make a big impact on how professional your site looks and performs. And one of the most common mistakes is adding way too many animations all at once. It might seem like more movement makes the site even more interesting, but really it often just does the opposite. When everything is moving at the same time, it just becomes harder to focus on what actually matters. A better approach here is to just tie your animations to user actions. So let elements appear as someone scrolls or interact when they hover or click. And this keeps the experience controlled and directs attention exactly where you want it to be. It's also important to keep finding new ideas so that your designs don't start looking all repetitive. The Spline community is a great place to explore new 3D concepts and see how other creators are building interactive elements. You can also check out Wix, of course, Wix Studio Academy, and their official forums where more advanced techniques are shared. So this is where you're going to start seeing things like more complex layouts or creative animation flows that go beyond the basics. And as you do get more comfortable, you might reach a point where the built-in animation settings actually kind of feel limiting to you. And that's where Wix's developer tools come in. By enabling developer mode, you can access the Velo API and then write custom JavaScript to control animations more precisely. And then this allows you to manage timing, coordinate multiple elements, and build even more advanced interactions that aren't really possible through the standard editor alone. And if you ever do get stuck, that's okay. You don't have to figure everything out by yourself. The Wix Studio Help Center is always available directly inside the editor, and it covers most common questions. So for more advanced problems, the Wix Studio Discord community is also a great place to ask questions, to share your own setup, and also get feedback from other designers and developers. So at this stage, it's less about following steps and really more about refining how you build. Small improvements, better decision-making, and learning from others are what gradually take your work to the next level. And that's it. You've just learned how to build the exact kind of website that we talked about at the beginning. One that doesn't just sit there, but actually guides attention, explains things quickly, and keeps people engaged. Now, if some parts still feel a bit rough, that's completely fine, because this is something you just get better at by building again and again and trying different layouts and experimenting, of course, with your own ideas. So go ahead and publish your site, share it with the world, and then see how people respond to it. So that's it for this tutorial. I want to thank you for watching and investing your time with me today. I'll see you at the next one.